Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life.
And Professor Sunrise Productions!
Hello class, Professor Sunrise here, and welcome to my pure Spright combo tutorial. In this video, on this class I would say, I'm gonna go over my way of thinking on how I want to do the combos. I'm gonna showcase you guys all of the 1-card combos, all of the 2-card combos, and all of the decision trees in the 3-card combos, or in the 2-card combos depending on the hand, to play around accordingly to your opponent's disruption. So, without further ado, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave some feedback down in the comment section below, and let's get right into the combo tutorial. Okay, let's go with the most simplest of 1-card combos, just one single starter and 4 blank cards in the hand. We're gonna activate the starter, pay 1.1k life points to summon a blue. Effect of the blue will get us the jet. Effect of the jet will search us smashes 9 out of 10 times, but in a 1-card combo you would probably want to go with that. Or even a starter. If these for 4 hand traps, you would definitely get a starter at this point, but let's keep it simple and say we added smashes. Then we link Xyz those off into a gigantic. Most of the time you want to summon this in defense. Effect of the gigantic, pitch 1, it doesn't really matter what you pitch here, and then you have the option of summoning any of these 3. If you already have any of them hard drawn, your combo of course would play out differently, but then you would 100% summon the cap shell. If you don't have any of these drawn, you might want to go for a red or a carrot, depending on the matchup, just so that you have that part of the Spright engine already available. So let's go with a red here for this tutorial, and then we link those off into an elf. Then we would use the effect of elf to revive the red. And this would be our end board. This might not look threatening, but this is still follow-up in the form of elf, summoning either blue or jet. Let's just say it summons jet. We would get a starter, which is in our hand. So let's put it at this. We would get another one. So we have one set card like this. So we would have 4 cards in hand, and with just our engine, we would have 2 disruptions in the form of smashes and red, plus follow-up added via the jet revived by the elf. So that's the basic 1-card combo with just one starter. Of course, it's not the most crazy, but think about it, it's just 1 card, which basically replaces itself and gives you a monster negate, plus a non-targeting banish on the opponent's field, which is pretty strong. Let's take a look at the other 1-card combo. So for this combo, we will just have the 1 beckoning beast, and see how far we can extend with that. Spoiler alert, it is pretty good, and it's probably the best 1-card combo you have. So you normally summon the beckoning beast. You are searching the opening of the Spirit Gates. You activate the opening of the Spirit Gates. You will be searching another Dark Beckoning Beast. You use your extra normal summon to summon the Dark Beckoning Beast. Then you Xyz onto Gigantic. Effect Gigantic. Pitch 1. It doesn't matter which one, of course. They are the same. Summon Blue. Effect Blue. Summon Search Jet. Special Summon Jet. Effect Jet. You would be either searching any of these 2 depending on the matchup, depending on your hand. But most of the time, like earlier said, it will be the smashers. So this comes back, and then you link these 2. Very importantly that you link the jet, not the blue, because you want the jet to be in your graveyard most of the time, because it is the more guaranteed follow-up you will be able to generate. Get an elf. Effect elf to summon back the Dark Beckoning Beast, and then you overlay these into a Djinn Buster. And as you can see, here you have the same amount of disruption as the just starter combo, but it is just slightly better because you can use your opening to actually extend through multiple disruption, or at least 1 disruption, if you know how to. And depending on the rest of the hand, this just plays slightly better than just the starter. It also just doesn't die to 1 Ash and leaves you with nothing. And most importantly, the Djinn Buster can be used immediately. Not like red, where you have to use it differently. You could also go into... wait, is it? I can't find my Masquerena. Did I put it here? Oh yeah, of course. You could also go into a Masquerena. Let's put this here. You could also end on a Masquerena instead of this. And then in your opponent's turn, you could use Elf to revive Jet, chain Masquerena. So you would link these off into a Zoroboros. And then you would be able to use your Elf and then chaining 1 this because it's mandatory, chaining 2 Jet to search your follow-up, and then wipe the whole opponent's field. Depending on the matchup, this might be what you want to go for. But honestly, it doesn't really matter for this tutorial. just know that one Dark Beckoning Beast is probably the best one card combo you have. Let's take a look at the next one card combo. So for the last one card combo, we actually have one opening of the Spirit Gates. This combo will play similar to just one Swap Rock, but it will basically showcase itself. So we activate the opening of the Spirit Gates. We add an Dark Beckoning Beast, normal summon Dark Beckoning Beast, add another copy of opening of the Spirit Gates. If this card would be able to search itself, you wouldn't need to go the extra route, but it is what it is. We link into Almirage, then we use the opening of the Spirit Gates, pitch itself to revive. Then we link off for the third summon into an elf, effect elf into that. So we have now played into Nib, but that is what it is. Here you can actually normal summon it in attack position just because you have 3.2k attack, effect gigantic, detach the beast, search blue, summon blue, effect blue, search jet, jet summon itself, search smashes or starter, like whatever you need for your hand. But like I always said, like twice already, we will be searching the smashes here, and then you are able to, here you have to think depending on the rest of the hand, because we already used the elf, you cannot really extend past that with an elf, so you probably just want to link those two into an elf. Again, you could also not link it into an elf and go for a Djinn Buster. So these are the two routes here. You could go for that. You could also go for an elf, which is probably the better bet. So you go for an elf and you just sit on this. Of course, this is not the best one-card combo because, as you can see, you only have the smashes. You don't have the monster negate with it or the spell negate, however you want to play it with if you have starter. But if you have any other extender, which is basically the whole Spright engine, if you've seen any other name of it, either red, carrot, whatever, you are able to link this off instead. And that with any other card, you would have either Djinn Buster, you would have a carrot / a red laying here, or you could go into a Masquerena with just any other extender. So once you have another extender, opening of the Spirit Gates is just as good as opening Dark Beckoning Beast, sometimes even better depending on what the hand traps are that your opponent is on. So these are all the one-card combos. To conclude, the one-card combos usually end on 2 disruptions plus some form of follow-up. They are quite fragile, as one-card combos usually are. Most of the time they will get hit by one hand trap. They all play around Nibiru, apart from the opening of the Spirit Gates, so keep in mind with that. But other than that, the one-card combos are actually quite strong. Let's take a look at the 2-card combos. So this is the first 2-card combo. By the way, we of course don't have that additional card in this case. We have 3 unknown cards plus 1 Beckoning Beast and 1 starter. This could also be blue. By the way, it is blue right now, but blue or starter don't really take away a lot from each other, just depending on the cards your opponent has. For example, they cannot Baylor your blue if you start in the draw phase, but other than that, because we are not playing around hand traps right now, this doesn't really matter to us for now. So we start out the play with opening with the normal summon of Dark Beckoning Beast, adding the opening, effect opening. We'll be not adding blue, but we'll be adding another copy of that. I don't know why I didn't prepare it. Here it is. So this is our hand right now. It doesn't really matter how you play it now. You can just normal summon the extra copy of the Beckoning Beast. Try to keep the extra monster, the cards under the extra monster zone free. Not these, but like these arrows. I'm just going to use these as the field center just because you want to be able to summon your cat, red, carrot, Masquerena, red, Djinn Buster, whatever. You want to be able to summon them under these. So we go for blue now. Blue will be adding the jet. Here we have to first decide what we're going to go for. There are 2 lines here. You could go for a Djinn Buster and play around just 1 nib, or you could go into a gigantic and play around a nib that way. I'm a huge fan of just using the blue and the beast to go into a Djinn Buster, and this I can start to put into a monster zone which is like left to right or to the extra monster zone, because this will be actually there on the end board. So now we can summon the jet. We do that because the 5th summon would be on the Xyz, and now the opponent can, because we had 4 monsters here, if we would summon a gigantic there, they could nib us, and we just do the Djinn Buster first, because if the opponent decides to negate our jet with something, we could in theory use the Djinn Buster depending on our hand to negate it if we wanted to. So now we do it like this: effect jet, search. Like I said earlier, smashes or starters. We will be sticking with the smashers. I'm gonna say this every time probably, but it is what it is. It's very important to know that you have both of these options, and just keep in mind, searching smashes is not always the correct play. There are plenty of cards in hand which make smashes, especially post side, just not as necessary depending on the matchup. Cards like Cosmic, Judgment, they deal with back row, and Floodgates just as good as smashes, so you don't need the smashes then. Anyways, we will now go into the Gigantic. This plays around any hand trap apart from Imperm on the Gigantic, so the opponent needs to basically have double hand trap here, or they would not be able to play. Or just one Imperm, in which case we are kind of screwed in this route. But if we have just one additional extender, this is definitely the play to go. But if we would get Impermed here, we would be kind of screwed. But it is what it is. We can then just go for a different end route. So we go for Gigantic here, pitch the Dark Beckoning Beast to summon out the Capshell for the first time in this combo tutorial. Then we go for an Xyz, and for a Link Summon, of course. Into that, effect Capshell, you draw one, so we will get an additional card in the hand. And now we use the Elf to revive. It doesn't really matter what we revive here. We probably want to revive the Jet, just because now we can use the opening of the Spright to pitch the extra additional card we had to revive either Capshell or that. It doesn't really matter. And then we can link those off into the Masquerena. And then we have a Monster Negate, we have a Spell Trap Negate, and we have the Zero Boros Masquerena play, which is really good because it opens up very easy OTKs in the opponent's turn. So this is the first 2-card combo. As you can see, it played around one hand trap, like every hand trap apart from, apart from Imperm. And there are definitely ways to play around Imperm as well in other combos, which I'm going to showcase you guys now. So the next 2-card combo is pretty simple, similar to the first one, of course. We just have opening instead of Dark Beckoning Beast, but it's important to showcase you guys that we, of course, start with the blue. This could be interchanged with as starter as well, like I said earlier. So effect of that, we will be adding Dark Beckoning Beast, normal summon of the Dark Beckoning Beast. Effect of that, we will be adding an additional copy of the opening of the Spirit Gates. Let's put this here so it's further away from the hand. Now we summon blue, effect blue. We will be adding the Jet. So then we summon the Jet, effect Jet. In this case, you could argue to go for a starter, but we will always go for the Smashers again. So we have 5 cards in hand, still 3 on the board. We're looking pretty good. Now this is where things could get crusty. If you don't respect the nip, you can definitely go for an Army Rush round here and just get your targeting protection going, but we are not about that. If Ogre is in the format, you could play around an Ogre here as well, but we will just go for a Gigantic here, effect Gigantic. We would pitch the Dark Beckoning Beast, of course. We would be summoning out of our deck, where is it, our Capshell, and then we would use the Capshell and the Gigantic to go into an Elf. Draw 1 of the Capshell. Then we can use the Elf to go into Capshell. And then we can overlay for a Gin Buster or a Masquerena, whatever we like. And at any point, if we get hand trap, we can use the opening of the Spirit Gates to get an additional body. And if we have an additional body in our hand, like any form of extender, we can end on the same board with just that, because we can revive one, and when we can summon the additional body, and we are good to go. So, in hindsight, opening of the Spirit Gates is basically just as good as Dark Beckoning Beast. If you have an additional extender, then it can actually become better because it plays around certain cards a little better. But overall, opening of the Spirit Gates is just one body short of being hard summon Dark Beckoning Beast. Reason why I still played at 3 is just because it is a way to get a level 2 on the field, and it's better than just one singular level 2 because it plays around stuff accordingly. So remember that opening of the Spirit Gates is just a little less good than Dark Beckoning Beast itself, but if with just one extender, you can basically end on the same boards as you are able to with the Dark Beckoning Beast. And remember, you'll 9 out of 10 times play around hand traps, and then the opening of the Spirit Gates gets even closer to the strength of the Dark Beckoning Beast. Let's take a look at a few hand combos with Jet instead of blue, because these do change up quite a bit. So, like I said, let's take a look at Dark Beckoning Beast plus Jet. Of course, this could be an opening of the Spirit Gates, and if you remember, just any additional body gets you there as well. So, we normal summon that. We are adding to our hand the opening, activate the opening, adding to ourselves a Beckoning Beast. We normal summon that with the additional normal summon of the Beckoning Beast. Then we do summon the Jet, effect Jet, to add a starter. If I have a hand like this and these are all blanks or these are just hand trips, I would always add a starter here just because we definitely want to get into our Spright engine. If our Gigantic would be negated, and if the Gigantic would get negated, we of course are still fine because we will just summon a Capsule and plus off in the meantime. So now we link those off into Gigantic. For the 4th summon, you could go for starter, summon blue, summon red, and that way we would be able to play around anything apart from Imperm on that. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of that because there's plenty of times where your opponent will have double hand trap, and that way you just play a little less into that. You could also overlay these two for a Djinn Buster, and then continue your plays, which is definitely a live route, and we can actually just go for it that way. I'm going to showcase you guys. And then you activate the starter. So this is the 4th summon. We don't want to get into that. Then we summon the blue, affect the blue to search the carrot. We would definitely put this here. The 5th summon, so at this point your opponent would be forced to Nibiru plus any other hand trap to stop us. And if it did that, we could use opening of the Spirit Gates to pitch one and then summon the carrot. So we have 2 level 2s plus a nip token, and that way we would be able to go into Elf. But let's just say they don't do that, so we now summon the carrot, and now we can go for a Gigantic. This does play into the exact combo of Nibiru plus Imperm. If they Nibiru first and then Imperm, because Nibiru we could use this, and then the Imperm, and we could use the carrot to pitch the Djinn Buster. But most of the time they would just Imperm this, then we would use the carrot, and then they would nib us. So this does die to double hand trap, which is why I kind of don't want to play it out like this. Just because, like I said, it dies to double hand trap, and if they would double hand trap us otherwise, we would have a better game plan. So keep that in mind. You probably want to go into the Gigantic first, and bait and hand trap with it, and then use the starter to continue your plays. So we use the Gigantic, summon the Capshell, and then we can link those two off into an Elf. Capshell, draw 1, and then use the Elf to revive the Capshell, so we can still trigger it with the carrot, and we pass turn. The starter, of course, is in the graveyard, so now we have 4 cards in hand, carrot, Djinn Buster. This is not as disruption heavy, so you definitely need to have hard-drawn hand traps with this. You usually have 2 to 3 at this point. And if you don't have them, you would probably have like carrots, reds, hard-drawn, so you can go for the other way and end on an additional monster negate, or you would have stuff to play around hand traps way more, and then you could end on Masquerena, for example, to get your spot removal via the Ouroboros line. So keep in mind, you probably don't want to do it the way I just did, just because it does play into double hand trap a little more. So just going for the Gigantic with the Djinn Buster protection is probably not the play, and just going for the Gigantic and bait and hand trap with it, just because while getting Capsule is really good, it's not like your main game plan. You just don't need a Capsule is just there so you can additionally plus if your opponent doesn't have any hand traps or hand traps you bad. So this is a normal summon plus Jet. It does play a little more differently. The lacking of Smashers can definitely hurt depending on the matchup, because Smashers is so important, especially against Spright, but I still just want to showcase you guys the combo, of course. So let's take a look at a few combo lines where you hard draw carrot or red and have that as your normal. So let's take a look at blue plus red. This could also be a carrot because your targeting protection or your monster negate protection is not really going to be used in this combo, just because the way the combo plays. So normal summon red, special summon blue, effect blue, will be adding your Jet, summon the Jet, effect Jet, will be adding the Smashers. Like I said, you could be adding your starter, and a lot of times this would actually be better, because while this combo looks very good on paper with no hand traps, it is very fragile to a hand trap, because any hand trap on this basically stops you on getting anywhere worthwhile. So having the additional starter makes it so if your opponent has an additional target against you, like Crow, or has a super polymerization, you at least stay in your engine, which is of course is the most important aspect. But for now, go for the Smashers, affect that, pitch, doesn't really matter what you pitch here. Summon the Capshell, and then you use these to go into Elf, effect Capshell to draw 1, and then you use your Elf to revive the Capshell. So this would be the end board. You would have Smashers, red with a Capshell for an additional draw, and 4 cards in hand. With the Capshell draw, we would have a 5th card, and Elf could revive something. This looks on paper way better than Dark Beckoning Beast plus starter, plus blue or starter, but the problem is, it's not way better. You basically get this very similar amount of stuff, so it looks on par with it. Let's say it like that. It looks on par with your best 2-card combo. The problem is, the moment your opponent breathes on you, this combo loses lots of its power, because if Gigantic gets negated there and you edit the Smashers, you go into basically go into the same play with just one red and Elf, because you link red plus Gigantic into Elf, Elf revive red, and then you end on this. And the moment your opponents goes in the main phase, they have basically one free activation of something, because you don't really want to use your red before you've used your Elf, so they have one free effect to use. If you have enough hand traps, this board can definitely be fine. And this is why I also feel comfortable with playing red and carrot at 2, just because they are decent normal summons by themselves if you have a good enough hand. But this is where your deck starts to lag, and games where you open Dark Backing beast+blue, you're very likely to win. But if you normal summon a red and play with that, the likelihood of you winning definitely goes down just by a little, just because it is so much more fragile than all of the other combos, especially in the mirror where you have to play around 2 to 3 hand traps. This can definitely start to hurt you there. So let's take a look at red+jet, because this again changes up a little bit. So like I said, red plus carrot, red+jet does play out a little differently, just because the jet lines are probably lacking smashers, just because you want to be safe. And let's just take a look at it. So we normal summon the red, we summon the jet, effect jet, we'll be adding the starter. At this point, because you cannot realistically get the value of the red, you might want to think, okay, you just want to overlay these into a Gigantic. Well, you could also just go for starter, summon blue, and then you summon the carrot. And now on the 5th summon, you could go for a Gigantic, and you would have at least one negate for that. And in my opinion, this is a worthwhile trade. So the other route would be to not go for the starter and go for the Gigantic here. If you get negated here, you would still just lose to any other additional disruption, and that way you can actually play around one disruption. So my opinion is worthwhile to go for that route. So we go for starter, summon blue. We want to keep these clean, of course, these zones. So blue searches the carrot, and now we can go for the Gigantic. And with Gigantic effect, we pitch the jet. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. We summon the cap shell, go for elf, get a draw. Oh, it's a smashers. It's not, because it's gonna be a blank. Effect that. Cap shell in the middle. So now you have, on your opponent's turn, you have 4 cards in hand. You have the elf revive, you get the additional capsule, and you have 2 negates, which is definitely not a bad board at all. So you might be asking why you don't always go for a starter route like this. Well, plenty of times I am actually doing, but the thing is, the starter route just becomes less optimal if you start your Spright engine with the blue, because the starter is only really a very good recovery tool in the combo, because if you start with jet, you still have the blue add effect. So if you go for blue at jet, the blue you summon off starter is not just as good in your own turn as if you just go for jet at the starter and then go for any hand trap your opponent might throw at you, and then as a recovery play you go for starter and get additional body in the form of carrot or even red, depending on what you hard draw, of course. So in this scenario where you hard draw jet and you don't use the blue effect early on, adding a starter off the jet is always feels so good, just because you play around hand traps accordingly. And if you don't get hand trapped too much, starter itself still offers you a form of disruption in the form of carrot, which of course is really good, especially now that we don't have toad. We really want to be able to have the tools to stop our opponent. And with 4 blank cards, you have to consider, if we would play it out like this, these 4 blank cards would probably all be disruptions or multiples in the form of additional blues, additional jets, stuff like that. So 9 out of 10 times these cards are always alive, or at least give us follow-up with a deck which basically never gets OTK'd, just because the way it plays and the way Elf forces out disruption with the battle phase, stuff like that. So keep that in mind. You would probably back all of these boards up with 2 to 3 hand traps because of the capsule draw as well. So let's take a look at one 3-card combo. The reason I'm only going to showcase you guys one 3-card combo will be told, of course, in the 3-card combo. So 3-card combos. Reason why I only going to showcase you one 3-card combo is just the way the Spright engine plays. Because if you have any additional copy of any of these, you basically will just always search the same thing. For example, if you have a jet, blue will be searching either of these 2, depending on the matchup, depending on the rest of the hand. If you have, for example, let's just say you have jet plus red. your jet will be searching the starter, which will be getting you this, which will be getting you this. If you have blue plus starter, your starter will be summoning any of these. So any of these, or would summon jet, and this would then your blue would search any of these. So it doesn't really matter what copy you have of them. Let's just go for a simple route and say you have a jet, because this is the most likely to happen, this or starter. So let's just say we have it like this. Put them back here, and let's show you guys the combo. So for this, I will definitely normal summon the Dark Beckoning Beast first, activate the opening of the Spirit Gates, effect opening at another Dark Beckoning Beast, you would normal summon it, and then you would go for the summon of the blue, effect blue. You would be adding probably a carrot, because the way the deck plays, it will get a monster negate in the form of Gym Buster, so you definitely want the carrot to stop any of the nasty spell trap negates your opponent, spell trap cards your opponent could have, of course. From here on out, this can differ. I'm always a huge fan of going for a Gym Buster here, just to protect your plays accordingly. And now we go for the jet. Effect jet would be adding a smashers. You could add a starter and play around double hand trap here quite effectively, because you could add starter. Starter could summon red, and then you could summon a carrot, and then you would have a gigantic here, which you could protect from double hand trap, which is definitely a play which you might want to consider if you already have two hand traps in your hand. But plenty of times you would kind of want to play into just one hand trap, and if your opponent has double hand trap, it is what it is, because it's only really a bone breaker if they have nip plus another hand trap. If they have two low impact hand traps, they probably would have come out already. So yeah, it's usually how I play it. So we are at this here, and then we don't use the carrot here because it is unrealistic that we would be able to resolve it like that. And we still have the opening of the Spirit Gates to play around the double hand trap, being nip plus Vela or something, or nip plus imperm. So we use the gigantic to pitch one, summon the cap shell. Then we go for an elf. Effect cap shell to draw one. Ooh, a hand trap. Then we use the elf to go for a cap shell revive, and then we summon out the carrot. And depending on the matchup, you could definitely go for Masquerena here, if you don't need the carrot, or you could summon the carrot here, and then use the opening to revive this, and then go into a Masquerena with that, depending on the matchup, like always. But the most basic combo I would say is this. And if you, for example, have like that multiple Spright names, you would probably want to consider going for the Masquerena as well. But in the most basic scenario, this is what you want to enter, and to get your spell trap negate. You get your Gin Buster, you get your elf, you get your capsule, drawing into, you get two more additional cards in your hand, one starter most of the time and one draw, and then you already have 3 disruptions just by the combo itself. So the 3-card combo just basically becomes very streamlined, just because Spright Engine is so efficient at getting to basically everything very early on. So it doesn't really matter what additional Spright card you have, as long as you have one Dark Beckoning Beast or one opening of the Spirit Gates, and you have one blue or one jet or one starter, you basically have everything, and you will basically always get to this board. If you have the opening of the Spirit Gate, you cannot get to the Masquerena, but other than that, it's basically very similar, and this is why I'm only going to showcase you this 3-card combo once. So, hope you guys learned a lot from this. The 3-card combo might just look as strong as the 2-card combo, but remember, we are playing around hand traps way more effectively with that, and I would say your average hand is somewhere similar between to your 2-card and your 3-card combo. Of course, there are times where you only have your one normal summon or your one starter, and you definitely need to know how to play with these hands then accordingly. Or there are hands where you have like opening plus red, and then you have to freestyle a little bit there, and if the opponent breathes on you, you're basically done for. But other than that, I hope you guys learned a lot from this combo tutorial. Went through all of the combos which I use on a day-to-day basis with this deck, to get me to like a very good, very healthy feeling with this deck, where I feel like it being so strong and most importantly so consistent feels like a very good meta call in my opinion. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope you guys could learn something. A tip or trick here and there will definitely get you along with this, especially because this is a deck which thrives of just being played perfectly. I'm still not quite there yet. I'm getting there closer and closer every day, and I hope you guys can get there as well. Hope you guys enjoyed this combo tutorial. Class is dismissed. You are free to leave. Professor Sunrise out. Peace.